Welcome to the February meeting of the Big Hole Watershed Committee. We'll start with introductions per usual. I'm Pedro Marquez. I'm the Executive Director of the Watershed Committee. We'll go to my right.
Roland Sailor. I'm the restoration specialist.
Caitlin Floyd at WC.
Good luck. Okay. All good work.
I'm Julie Gala and I'm the whole.
Oh, right on.
Pete Peterson, range for Dillon. I can think of the
Okay. We get you? Yeah. Thanks, everybody. We're gonna do the precip report. I just gotta find my Zoom screen real quick so I can share it. Oh, here. Okay. What is this thing? Hello? Hannah, I was on here, right? Oh, there's the Zoom. Okay. I'll share this now. Tell me if that's working. Yep. Right on.
All right, yeah, anyone doesn't know me, Luke Watts, the DNRC hydrologist for the Big Hole River. Just like snowpack for conditions. So let everybody know, we just installed last Thursday a new real-time gauging station at the Big Hole River at Jerry Creek.
Oh, cool.
Interested, we don't have anything obviously set up right now for discharge, but we have stage running right now. And that's gonna be found on our content and stage. So hopefully throughout the summer, you can get a reading, fill it, and have more data.
Sweet.
At that location, so.
It's just right at the base, right at the mouth.
It's right above, it's on that bridge.
Yep.
It goes across, the fishing access there.
You do bright or dark?
Oh, one or the other. I think this is fine. Yeah. We get new bulbs.
So this is the National Water Climate Center snow water equivalent. This is yesterday, it's actually gone up a little bit with the snow for today, but 83% I think is what it was today. As you can see, current condition, like those really warm days we had earlier this month, really filled that snowpack. And we're actually, that says 16th, we're actually up to the 22nd percentile technically as of today. And for speed. And then this is just, that blue line is just last year's snowpack line. So if you just want to get a gauge of what it was last year compared to this year, that's kind of where we're sitting. This is the Mule Creek Station. This is at that southern end of the Pioneers, still around 100%. And then Dark Horse is at around 90%. And then this is all the, most of our snow is coming out of Calvert Creek and this at Mule Creek. And then Slag Melt and Dark Horse down that southwest side of the Beaver Heads are doing pretty good. And a lot of our lower snowpack, some of the Anaconda range, and then that northwest corner can be the
True.
precip is actually pretty good overall, but most of that's Emma's rain or it's already melted out when we did have snow later this year. So that's why she isn't really effective.
Is that 102%? Is that snow or equivalent to dark?
This is the precip.
Oh, this is the
Precip. So it's not snow, it's on the ground. It's just overall pretty good.
But the higher elevations are much better shape than.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
This is from Montana Climate Office. They use both SNOTEL and SNODAS weather stations, so they're estimating about the same, around 80% overall. And then this is PIPS only sleeve. This is just a distribution of the snowpack based on elevation. That gray line that you can see that's shaded, that's the median. and then the blue line is current conditions. So you can see most of our snow is just under 8,000 feet. This graph here is the same elevation, but just as a percent of normal. So we're below normal. Until we get about just over 8,000 feet, and what about where we should be for this time. This is also from the Lieutenant Climate Office, so the cool thing about the model future conditions, you can say, so that dashed line below the median line right here, is they predict it'll melt out at throughout the year based on the current conditions. So Mule Creek, they're estimating it'll probably be about what it should be. Dark Horse, maybe it's gonna melt out a little bit earlier, they have a little bit less overall than the median.
That's cool. That's new.
This is the NOAA climate outlook. 2 week precipitation outlook and temperature outlook, about near normal to maybe like slightly above average temps and above average precip. In this area. And then the seasonal is normal to maybe slightly below and still above average throughout the this year. I will say they are adopting a new index called RONI. Instead of ONI, which is ONI. The previous way to determine these for El Nino and La Nina conditions was they were running a 30-year average and then comparing the anomaly from the ocean, like the ocean temperature surface anomaly. Now they're actually using current conditions within the strip and the around the equator to make those predictions on La Nina. So it should be maybe more accurate since the climate's living over there. So that's just something to keep in mind, that they might change some of the old indexes from previous years using RONI. They have a lot more information on the website if you're interested in that at all. Overall, like I said before, La Nina probably expected any time to start transitioning back to enso neutral. Really all that means is the near normal conditions. And then there is somewhat of a chance of El Nino persisting this fall. But that's pretty far out, so I'm gonna be confident in it, so. I think I'm on it, yeah, so. This is from Montana Climate Office, yeah, moderately dry is what they're considering doing right now. And then I think on the next one is. This is the US drought monitor, and before we were pretty much in. Entire Beaver County was in D2 drought, and they're expecting maybe pull out of D2 and maybe even to D1 or D0 here, depending on conditions this spring. Yeah, any questions on anything?
All righty. Oh, there you go. Look.
Yeah,
What's different years?
there are a range of years. It's more, they determine, so. It kind of makes sense to be put on their website. I just have it simplified here just for presentation's sake, but you can actually go through and click all the years, I think back to early 80s, I want to say. All of these medians are based off of historical data. They run off about 30-year moving average.
All right. More climate questions? Okay, I will share mine if I can find it. I think that's it. Okay. I can get this thing out of my way. Is there a way to get this thing out of the way? Does anybody know?
Yeah, we go down to hide 30 meters details.
Oh, look at that.
Seems like it's nice to have it.
All right, I'll give somebody a cookie who can guess where this is in the big hole. I've got a macaroon type of thing. There's a chocolate chip. Any guesses?
Yeah, that's Lincoln Park there. Just below.
Nope, not on the main stem. No, but you're close. You're in the ballpark. You're in the Huck 10. You're in the appropriate Huck 10 hydrologic unit code. That's so nerdy. I'm sorry.
So that's the Pioneer Road there and that's the.
Yep.
Watershed.
Nope.
It's area to move.
Nope. All right. Where'd he go? Go. Where's the thing? Hold on, I gotta change it. There it goes. Jacobson Meadow, just below Elkhorn Creek. Yeah, it's a beautiful spot. Anyway, I'm gonna start doing this. I'm gonna try to do this more often. I think this is fun. Little Google Earth trivia.
So I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
You can figure out. There's a trail that goes up. The far side of that meadow. And along that edge there, right along there.
along the edge.
Meadows.
Yeah.
And it goes, and there's some rock rings that are about
Oh,
8 feet in diameter. There's 3 of them.
oh, cool.
I have not been able to figure out what they are. Last a lot of the time. There's
Oh,
obviously some structure built there.
Like in here, like in
Along
this,
that edge there.
right along the way. That's right. That's right. Put something.
Yeah.
They are 8 feet. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh, interesting. There'll be a historical talk here. I'll show you. Those folks might know. Alta Miller and Company. Cool. Anyway, it's fun. A watershed is beautiful. And there's a million different nooks and crannies like that. First things first, we just flew today. Big Hole Committee is going to hire for the summer 4 technicians. Maybe the coolest job these young people will ever do. They spend all summer going to high alpine meadows across the watershed to ground truth their feasibility for doing restoration, for doing low-tech restoration stuff, soaking the ground, saturating the soils of these meadows. We've got them all mapped throughout the watershed. That's an example of the Wise River map that came out of a product that we did last year. So all of the highlighted in green are the highest priority meadows. And so we're shrinking the watershed down into the best places to just naturally enhance storage. A place like this that just needs to be soaked, making sure that it's all soaked as long as possible. So that water trickles out later in the year for everybody is part of the objective of that work. That's open now. This is your guy. He's great with young people, getting them up into the forest, into the woods all summer. They'll mostly be camping. We'll put them up in hotels for the weekends, and other folks have offered up places for them to stay. And ideally, we're looking for folks that are local. Yeah, I hadn't considered, I'm not gonna be ageist about it, but you wanna throw a resume in. If you can backpack and, yeah, might have to camp out in the woods with a 20-something-year-old, but we're open. I think it'll be fun, and if our funding lines up the way we're anticipating, we'll be able to continue doing this for the next couple summers. The idea being, we did the GIS, the spatial work, we'll send the ground crews out. Once we've got more information about each one of these meadows, then we can get the money to go do the work while the next crew is going out and ground truthing the next meadows. And pretty soon we're actually working across this landscape. That's the scale that needs to happen. That's the idea anyway. You'll see in our emails the notice and the job opening. So reach out to Nolan if you know anybody that could be a good fit. At our annual governing board meeting, we went through a change in our steering committee. So first I want to give Jim Hagenbarth a big thank you for serving as board chair for the last 2 years. I want to recognize his work. And just stepping off the steering committee doesn't mean you're not going to get phone calls from me regularly, as I'm always calling you anyway. And Jim's not stepping back from any of the initiatives that he's works on and brings to the committee. So in his place, Dean has stepped up into the chair position, and then J.M. Peck has moved out of just a governing board position to be our vice chair. So the steering committee thought it was real important to maintain ranchers in the head and vice chair positions of the governing board. I think that's sort of part of our DNA, how we started, how the organization needs to persist. Steve and Roy continue in their positions as secretary and treasurer and secretary. So with that, I'm excited to work with Dean, JM more directly as well. We also put together, under sort of Nolan's direction, we put together a board packet. We talked at the annual meeting as a governing board about making it more clear to the general community that we're open to governing board members that want to participate and want to join the committee. The first thing if you know of anybody or are interested in what we do, the first thing I always say is just start showing up. Start meeting people, start figuring out what this is all about. And so we put together a board packet for folks that might be interested, that just quickly summarizes a little bit of our history, who we are, what a governing board member, what your expectations are and things like that. We didn't really have anything like that put together. So Nolan's handed that out to governing board members for your guys' review. Just make sure we've captured everything that we need to capture for prospective new board members. Awesome. Yeah, come to me with any questions for that. Our drought management plan, our draft is in progress. Basically, it's done, a few edits.
Yeah, that's close. There's just some revisions we got just recently that we need to.
Okay.
Just update the language and then get back to the subcommittee.
Okay, so once we get that cleared, we'll send it on to the rest of the governing board for approval. So hopefully at our next meeting, we'll seek approval for the management plan for this year. But hopefully we don't even need it. There's always that hope. Yes, sir. In the plan? No, not really, right?
No, there was just some kind of language clarifying after the fees discussion to reopen. Later in the season. And none of the actual closures for the days. That we have to do.
So we discussed that the triggers were essentially rated with
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
is there any kind of new conclusion in that regard?
No, they very much, they owned it. The Region 3 fisheries, they owned the decision to reopen the river a week early. For those of you that don't remember, basically, the water was cold enough, the flows were not great. The river was going to close within a week, and they just decided to give the fishing community an extra week of fishing before the river shut down. It was an ill-timed fish monitoring activity happened about the same time, and a bunch of dead fish were found downstream. So it was not a good one. They totally owned that decision. And really, at the end of the day, they are the regulatory body. We are not. And so the language that got clarified just really makes it clear that at the end of the day, they have the discretion in a moment like last year to reopen. Yeah.
You know, based on what happened with the big bill. And it's immediately from the folks on the plan is that the flow is one thing, but then as long as the temperature is okay, low enough, then it's unlikely to intensify.
That's the going.
So this particularly event for the thing, because it happened at a lower temperature layer of the state.
Yeah.
And so the idea, we can do this because it's safe to put the temperatures down. So moving forward, let's not do that.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Yeah, because they introduced a stressor to the fish in the form of electric probes, which is different than a fishing pressure.
But it was still within the closure time, it still was at that point where they had
The flows hadn't gone up for 7 days in a row. And so really I think what they carved out for themselves was some more latitude with that 7-day reopening criteria on flow itself. So
They basically said that they realized now that fish were stressed on more than they realized. And they should not elect the fish.
yeah. And that was all in
And
the,
they're not going to do that again.
that's right. Yeah. And it was in the name of collect the data, find out what's wrong, the big push that was put in the spotlight a couple years ago. And so they're really keen on collecting as much data as possible to better understand the fishery. Yeah. 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 So it's, at the end of the day, having this process and having the consistency of this group, of what we're doing, of having the subcommittee, of having a call down list, of having this drought plan, as imperfect as it is, still better than not having it at all. And that's, I want to keep emphasizing that point because we're not regulatory, but this process does create something that is helping the river. Yeah. So along those lines, I'm working with the governing board to just get an invitation. We want to sit down with sort of the higher levels of state government and talk about the things that we're doing here in the Big Hole and seeking more support really from the governor's office on things like cloud seeding, off-stream storage, vegetation management. Those are the three priorities. Nothing new to anybody that's been around the committee since we started. Really. The last thing, second to last thing, the DEQ updated its TMDLs, that it's how they quantify impairments on rivers. And so they updated some of those impairments. The Big Hole, the North Fork Big Hole, Deep Creek, and Wise River all got new listings for pH. So the pH of those water bodies is out of what they consider should be reference or normal. From what I've gathered from them, most of that is going to be due to vegetation growing on the stream bottoms and the oxygen that it lets out and the diurnal sort of all of the plant breathing and photosynthesizing and what that does to affect pH. Nothing we can really do about that. On the bright side, our water sampling at Elkhorn Creek over the last 5 years, we've had to do it for the remedy. We submitted those water samples and they actually delisted Elkhorn Creek for arsenic and lead. Still don't go drink that water. It's just the arsenic and lead that are out. It's still plenty of cadmium, zinc, and copper in that creek. But it's neat to have that relationship as we keep sampling and going in different places. We have the pathway to get that data officially counted by DEQ towards their TMDLs. Okay, any questions there? A couple more things. As far as just communications and stuff, I mentioned this divide history. So the Grange Hall is going to host Sunday the 22nd here at the Grange Hall, 2 o'clock. Little history of divide. Looks to be pretty interesting. And then there's a TEDx event at UM Western at the end of March, and I'll be one of the speakers at that. Pretty cool lineup of speakers all day at UM Western. I'm gonna put that on you guys' radar. And then the last thing that caught my eye this month that I just wanted to share is Western Landowners Alliance put out a study that I thought was pretty fascinating. And they looked at investments by landowners themselves in conservation. So voluntary conservation measures by private landowners. It far surpasses any federal program like EQIP or any of that. This is a breakdown by conservation category. So that's $93 million in water resource management. I'm not sure how all this per acre sort of cost and investment got put together. You can read the whole report. There's the link to it. But for $5 an acre, all of these activities can be done at those price points. Conservation does seem pretty doable, doesn't it? And here's the scale of that investment all the way on the far right in comparison to federal pots of money. Like it's more than the entire USDA EQIP program. Land Water Conservation Fund doesn't even hold a candle to what landowners are investing on their own. Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. It's a worthwhile report to look into. That's all I got. Any questions for me? Nope. March 21st to Saturday. Yeah. I think I speak at night. I speak in the last session, like the 4 o'clock afternoon. All right. I will pull up the next one. Steering committee, have any updates this time around?
I think you covered the steering committee changed a little bit in a couple of years and get on the steering committee for a long time. Yeah, we're gonna have to call you. We talked a lot about creating more water storage options. Gonna get after that, Jim's help. Mainly come up with money.
Yeah.
There's some good ideas, there's some expensive ideas.
Yeah.
I think that's really all. I'm having an experience maybe in March.
Yep. Yeah, we'll catch up through our first quarter wrap up in March. Great. All righty. Who's next year?
Me.
You? Okay, I just gotta find.
I know if you did this back, I should be doing what you're doing.
That's right, because I'm on the screen.
It's okay.
Exactly. Who hired these people?
We're rusty after a couple months.
It's
off.
really amazing how rusty this thing can get. Yeah. Imagine the screen. See, I just gotta get, oh, that's the thing. Now I gotta share. I'm gonna share your thing. That's right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Is that right?
Keep going. And, okay.
Sweet. You gonna flip it then?
Yeah, all right, so just a quick update on communications. I wanted to tell you first about our upcoming monthly meetings. We've already got a pretty good lineup for 2026. So of course, tonight we're hearing about mountain lions. Then next month will be the CCAA update. April, we'll hear about flexible grazing with Pat Fossey. In May, we'll have a fishery update and we'll hear from John Peterson about his work measuring water for conservation throughout the Big Hole, which he did last summer and he'll be coming back to do this summer again. And in June, you will hear from the DNRC about a new form they have to protect your water rights from potential abandonment claims. August, September, and October are open, but I anticipate one of those will be weeds. And then in November, we'll hear about the Wisdom Managed Aquifer Recharge Project. So yeah, a lot of great topics already. Our newsletters, we published 2 in 2025, one in the spring and one in the fall. We direct mailed a little over 2,300 of them, and we distributed 700 to Big Hole Valley businesses and neighboring communities. And yeah, if you haven't read it yet, it's on our website. I've got a couple copies that I forgot to put on the table, but I could grab them for you. There's lots of great updates in there. So I'd also like to mention, we now have branded BHWC gear. You can get it on our website. And it all supports the profits we get from it support our Big Hole Conservation Fund. We've got hats, sweatshirts, bags, coffee cups, tumblers, all kinds of stuff. And if there's anything that you're looking for that's not on there, just let us know and we'll see if we can get it on there. All right, and actually, Harley, if you are on there, if you're, I know you're there. Harley, if you're ready, you can go ahead and talk about the film screening.
Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to share that the documentary short film, Restoring the Headwaters, created by BHWC and filmmaker Tom Atwater, is screening soon, and we would love for you to join us. So you can catch it on Thursday, March 26th at 6 p.m. at the Covellite Theater in Butte, and at the Patagonia Dillon store on Thursday, April 9th at 6:30 p.m. And everything will follow with a panel discussion, and both events will be a great evening. And so mark your calendars and bring a friend.
Did you guys hear that? I didn't realize we didn't have this computer hooked up to the L camera. So she said March 26th in Butte at the Covellite Theater, the film will be screened. And then also, was it April 9th, Carly? In Dillon?
Yep, April 9th at 6:30 p.m.
April 9th at 6:30 in Dillon. And these are free showings. And we'd love if you'd come out and show your support. So it's a really great film. And we're going to show you the trailer now. I'm going to do that.
From here. And then you need the audio. Is the audio gonna come from your? Yeah, make sure the audio is connected because I feel like that's a big piece. Yeah, I'm not gonna oversell it, but this film is awesome. It's really amazing. Like we've done films before and this is next level as far as the cinematographers, the story we're able to tell. We've got a world-class animator now adding some animations to it. We're really excited about this one. And then I mute mine. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so okay. I'm going to open it. hyperspace.
Okay.
Stop my screen sharing.
Oh.
Okay. Hold on, I'm gonna stop mine.
Or just go back to,
Oh, here we are.
all right.
Yeah, I wish you could, can you get me out of here?
Yeah, go down to.
Hide self view. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. No,
Hide.
let's see. Go all the way up to standard, maybe? All right.
There it is.
All right, see if this works.
No, just. Okay.
Given precipitation changes and climate, our best hope, big goal is to keep whatever water we get on the landscape as long as possible.
Just to stand in these big wide open natural habitats with these ancient rhythms. That's what makes my heart beat.
If we lose these wetlands, those animals will all find somewhere else to be. So these two lakes are within a mile or Smith Springs Restoration Center Street over that lake. And so I was looking to find it, it's big about this is nice little magic wetland, wet meadow complex, but fairly degraded. Head cuts basically are the formation of a drain that's going to take water out of the system and move it downstream as fast as possible. That head cut is lowering the groundwater table away, starting to actually cause this thing to dry out. Groundwater dams to bring up the groundwater and restore that to the active wetland area. One of the things I think about sometimes keeps me up at night with a big, large scale project like this. All we can do, I think, is this going to have these assurances to know that we walk away. This is kind of what's that's the whole goal of marginal restoration. These wetlands are supported by the irrigation practices of ranchers. So if we lose ranchers, we lose floodplains, we lose the flood irrigation that they do, we actually lose these wetlands.
All right.
So that, the trailer, and we'll go come and see the screen. We'll probably show it at a monthly meeting after the
Yeah,
meetings.
after the debuts, eventually we'll show it here. It'll be 15 minutes at tops, 14 minutes, something like that. All right, what's next? You're still on your
Yes.
thing, and I should share that again. Yeah. Look at that. I'm gonna live for this thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you need to do anything.
No, that should be good. Okay. All right, and then now just a big wildlife update. Our wildlife conflict reduction programs include our range rider program and our carcass removal and composting program. And currently we have quite a bit of funding for the programs. We got $194,000 from the America the Beautiful Challenge grant through the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, which is a subaward from the Heart of the Rockies initiative, and they got a subaward from Fish, Wildlife and Parks. So there's a lot of groups involved there. But this funding lasts through 2027 and they may extend it through 2028. So that's been huge for our programs. Because we're typically just getting a little bit of funding each year and hoping there will be more next year. We did get Montana Livestock Loss Board funding. Last year we got 17,500. This year we got 8,500. We just asked for a little less this year since we had so much of the other funding. And then, so our Upper Big Hole Range Rider program, we've got Chet Robertson has been our rider since 2011, and he still is. He's here. And he monitors 6 Forest Service allotments for 7 producers through in the Upper Big Hole from July through September. He's actually going to start in June this year, though. Monitoring for livestock condition and carnivore activity. And the goal of his program is to ideally to prevent cattle and other livestock from being killed by wolves and bears, but also to find the livestock and report them to both the rancher and wildlife services for investigation and potential reimbursement when possible. So in 2025, there were no confirmed depredations on enrolled allotments, and we were able to buy a new 4-wheeler for the program. I think I need to update that 2,700 number. I think we raised almost $4,000 toward the cost of the $8,000 4-wheeler, which unfortunately could not be paid for with either of those grant sources we have. Thank you to everyone who's contributed. And then, so in 2026, I left a question mark on there, but we are going to start the season earlier. So we'll be starting in June, and we added 2 new allotments last year as well.
I think it's 7 allotments, 6 producers.
I think you're right, because 2 of the producers share an allotment. Okay, yeah, you're right. So in 2025, our carcass composting program went through some changes. So first, our driver, Justin Cottingham, resigned. And then also the truck that we typically borrow from the Red Rock Lakes National Wildlife Refuge, this one is no longer available. So we borrowed this truck, the other truck, from Benton Lake National Wildlife Refuge, which is very nice of them to let us borrow it, but it wasn't really ideal for our purposes. It's like a rollback, not a full dump truck. And so we've given that one back. In 2025, we picked up 32 carcasses, which is fairly low. Part of that was not having the truck that we needed, but part of that was also just not a lot of cows died last year because we didn't have a ton of snow and cold weather. So there were 6 ranches that participated last year. So the exciting thing in 2026 is we've hired a new driver, and he's here tonight. So Eric, say hi to everybody. It's Eric Lewis. He'll be our new driver. He doesn't have a CDL, so we'll be leasing a dump trailer. But that actually, I think, will work in our favor. We have funding to lease equipment, but not buy equipment. And it may give us a little more flexibility on our season. And then this is also funded through the Livestock Loss Board and America the Beautiful Challenge grants. And I actually skipped over this, but in case any of you are not familiar with this, we have a compost site right outside of Wisdom, and we have a truck where we go around to local ranchers and pick up carcasses and take them back and compost them. And we do this to keep them from being attractants to bears and ranches and bears and wolves, and having them attracted into ranches and potentially preying on healthy livestock or being a human safety risk. Yeah, and then the last thing is we are just continuing to work on our grizzly bear safety and bear resistant infrastructure initiative. So we've got some funding to buy some more bear resistant garbage cans that we will distribute to local residents and businesses. And then we're also looking into potentially trying to grizzly proof the Wisdom transfer station, which had a grizzly bear hanging out around there last year. And we're working with people and carnivores in Dillon to identify additional opportunities. So, all right, that was a lot and I talked fast. So does anybody have questions? All right, let's hear about restoration. Dan's suggestion was, yeah, electric fencing and the.
There it is. Sharing.
I took blue colors because it was snowing today. Yeah, it's funny. A lot of what we're doing right now for restorations, planning, design, contracting, committee, fundraising. I sit on my butt all day long. And but we've got good plans and we're gonna talk about it. So go ahead and go to the next slide.
Let me see how this one's gonna work.
Yeah, so we have a lot of different projects. I'm just gonna highlight 3 of them today, just because these are the most active projects that we're working on. They're pretty exciting. And we can get into detail there a little bit more. So the three projects that I'm gonna highlight, Lazy S Ranch, that one's just out of White River. And we're in contracting phase with that. I'll show you the designs and we've sent that out to get some bids back. California Gulch is another really big project. That's part of the Mount Hagen complex. With that one, I got a film where it just has some, I guess it's just
It's a pre-bid.
satellite footage.
Yeah. It's Google Earth.
Yeah, it just shows the whole complex, how difficult it is to do the work up there and where we're at now. And then the last one, we're in funding phase, and this is with a DQ grant, McCartney Mountain sediment containment structures. And I'll talk to you guys about those type structures that are just a little bit more robust. And they're designed to capture sediment and build soils a little more actively. Okay, next slide, yeah. All right, I gotta slow down. Lazy as Lazy as Elkhorn Ranch. So this is Wise River, right? Let's see, right there, and then this is the bottom, the lower section of the project there. And we got three different techniques that we're gonna work on there. The three different techniques, go ahead and go to the next one. Three different techniques we got is we're gonna fence out the riparian area. There is a lot of willows in this section. And there's three different phases. Some of the sections we're gonna fence out. This is 1.6 miles. And then we're gonna put some water breaks in. And then go to the next slide and I'll show you. With this, we're gonna do some planting and regrading of the stream bank. Because it's sloughing off, it's not native vegetation, and we're getting a lot of sediment loading into the river. And we really lack a lot of knowledge that a lot of sediment loading into the river, but we also lack shade. Okay, and here's a close-up of what that exposure is going to be. So not only do we have a 4-strand animal-friendly fence that runs that 1.6 miles, we also have some enclosures or exposures, however you want to think about it, that we're gonna put some black cloth down, bring some copper mask and go plant them in there. And that's gonna exclude. We're gonna really create these islands of really hopefully dense riparian vegetation. And so for these exposures, they're 200 by 50 feet, so not very big. Wow, it's a lot of plants, so depends on by scale. Go ahead and go to the next one. And here's the bank regrading and vegetation. So it's 912 linear feet that we're doing, that we're working on this section. We're gonna be doing, go ahead and go to the next slide and I'll show you. This is what some of the existing channel looks like. You can see how you got non-native grasses, they just pump in the form. And then you do have a little bit of willows, but not much, and it's not protected. That's all from that fence. Hopefully get a lot of that in the back. All right, I think there's one more slide which is going to show this is not on this property, but this just shows the restoration techniques of little trenching. And hoping we're going to do a lot of little staking. Hopefully get this project will have a lot of growth and we'll see this process. All right, do you guys, anybody have any questions about this project? Yeah.
You put willow and bank, is that on private property?
Yeah, this whole section is gonna be on private property, but it's within, that's a bigger question, pretty small parts. It's on the stream thing, but it's on private property, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he wants it.
Oh, yeah, he's contributing, he's totally on board, so it's a great part, yeah.
Yeah.
Good question, yeah.
Keep going.
Okay, second project, California Gulch, which is part of the Mount Hagen project area that we've been working with. So Mount Hagen Wildlife Management Area, 6,000 acres. It's just such a big scale area. I know we've talked a lot about it and you guys have seen it before. Go ahead and go to the next slide. This is what we're hoping for. This is the earlier treatment that Ben did on Joiner Gulch. And this is what it was before the treatment, and this is what it looks like 2017. Really hard to get things to grow on this volcanic soils that's very erosive. It's just transient and it's moving all the time. Okay, go ahead and go to the next slide. In fact, let's see, you should be able to.
Oh, this is let's see. Let's see, sir.
I know. Oh, you don't have access?
I need access, but I know where, I also know where this lives. Should I pull that up? Ah,
I never,
you tried.
It's so terrible because I've been like, you need to start using the Google Suites. They're so convenient. And then I stumbled like that. It's so
Quick.
never gonna get bigger views now.
Oh yeah. Oh, you were trying to convince me to go. Yeah, change my game.
It's so much more convenient.
It is. That's all right. Here we are. This is the one.
Yes. Cool.
So this is what we did here is just, this is the flyover video for the contractors because they can't, it's out to bid now. And they can't obviously walk the site because it's covered in snow. So this is our way of taking them to the site and giving them a up close look. The place we had built in 3 rock check dams at the base of this thing. And we're just concerned that if we walk away and the Superfund money runs out, that just one storm on all of this erosive material could overtop those 3 check dams pretty quickly. We've been doing stuff by hand in these gullies for 10 years, and it's worked great. We've built up probably 4 to 6 feet from the bottom to the top, just doing in like check structures, but it's not enough. So before we walk away, we wanted to mechanize this whole operation up here. So that's out, that's flying right now to some local contractors, open. I've some skilled artists in heavy equipment out here for about a month and probably having a lot more fun than building some subdivision in Bozeman or something. If I were an operator, I'd probably choose something like this. This was where the log flume traversed this basin. And it took years for us to figure out that the degradation and the erosion that we were seeing was not because of just natural erosion. It's because literally the logs would back up in the flume and the water would spill over the log flume. And that's what was causing all of the massive erosion. And it wasn't until I read this Jack Lozinski's research on this stuff that the light bulb went off and we realized what the real sources of degradation were on this landscape. So that's at the top of it. So the whole thing's going to get, are you showing the designs? Yeah. Okay. I'll save mine. That's Sugarloaf Mountain in the background there for reference. That's what happens when you take all the trees off and pour a bunch of water on white dirt for 100 years.
Yeah, a little bit of chemicals from that.
Yeah, that and smelter dust. That'll do it.
Thanks, Pedro. I
Yeah.
asked Pedro to talk during that, and he said, "No, you got it."
But you knew I was gonna. I can't stop. No, you can't hold me back.
Because he's been doing this. He's been on that side. I mean, you cut your teeth up there. He's been up there for decades.
Deal. All right, get you back to where you were, which was somewhere in here. See, I shouldn't have done that.
Oh, get that
Oh.
access tonight? Yeah.
No, is that where we were?
And then you'll just go to the next line.
Yeah, that's my access denied slide.
I know, I don't. God, it's a reminder.
This is, yeah, no, that's not where it is.
Oh, wasn't there?
No, sure. Quick, distract them.
Well, I'm done with my song and dance.
There's too many things.
We're close though to being done with this. Is there any questions about mountain and wildlife management area or any of the restoration projects? Did you guys see how much like
Oh.
dirt was exposed out there?
There you go. Here you go, sir. Good-
Yeah,
good
there we
work.
go. Okay, here's the design plans, which I love as an artist. I love looking at these things. I just think they're visually very interesting. And so I didn't show you any of those dozer pits, but that's what they're gonna do here. Bunch of different treatments, but dozers are gonna come down and just create these pits that are about the width of the blade. And they dig in and they throw dirt, so it captures water. And they'll just do those one after another. And what happens is it captures nutrients in water so things can grow. And then the other, we got check dams that we're gonna do here. And then other treatments here. So this is what we've already set out to bid. We did the engineered plans, got those back. Now we've sent out these plans, to different contractors for this.
Yeah, this restoration will be the same.
Hopefully, right?
Yeah, that deal, we've got to get it spent by June 30th, so it's like right away. The idea always is get your bids out there early this time of year, just so contractors can line up. And for most of them, they're really busy in the main summer months. But if you can catch them in this April, May window, they're usually we're trying to get them in there like as soon as the snow's off, as soon as possible.
Is there any other questions about this second restoration site and process?
You say California Gulf, that's California.
Yeah, same one. That first pull in when you come off the divide. Yep, right in there. And the neat thing about this one is we actually had engineers put together like engineered designs that are basically like the handwork that we do, except it's going to be built with machines, but we're not importing any material. We're just using the tree. So all these green blocks are where we've identified the contractor can go in, harvest trees out of that and use that as your building material.
Yeah, the scale is so big, it's time for machines.
It's basically, yeah, it's still 30 feet from the bottom of the gully to the top. So that's not something we're doing.
Okay, so the DPG 19 grant that we've got, well, I got one more day actually, so we got one more day. Dan's actually done a lot of heavy lifting, thank you. She has to process all my chicken scribbles into somehow a grant proposal. With this, the primary project came to us, we had a contractor point out this storm event that happened just off Burma Road. This is Burma Road right here, this is Glen. Sandy Hollow, if you guys know where that is, there's a kind of a 4-wheel drive track right there. This is the next drainage to the east of that. And what happens is during these large, go ahead and go to the next slide, these large thunderstorm events, they're usually rain events, they move a lot of sediment. There's just, this landscape's always, we've never had a lot of straw, right? You're always going to have a lot of transport sediment in the system. But because of that, we're trying to, with roads, grazing, and some other impacts, and the way we designed it, there's more sediment that's getting pushed around. We want to arrest that, stop it. So what we're doing, you can see this is 1995. You can see it's actually there's an island. It's a split channel there, which is it's changed because right here, there might be multiple factors, lower flows and flushing flows in the spring, but we also get a lot of sediment flow through here. And that's dumping a lot of sediment in this channel here. Let me go to the next slide. This is what happened in 2023, there's a big flood event. This is out of the Sandy Hollow wash, but it just took out that road. And when it did this, it actually deposited, I was talking to Ray Wilbury with Madison County Roads, and yeah, it was waist high across that road, just sediment and rocks, just clogging the road on the drainage that we're working on. So I don't have a photo of that, but that's how much sediment was just pushed, and that keeps getting pushed directly into the big one. All right, go to the next slide. So with that, what happens is the county just pushes all that sediment off. So you have a continual sediment load here at the edge of this river, which is just washing into the big hole from here is about maybe 125 yards downstream. So the project proposal is to armor this, create a channel, armor it, vegetate the sides, and create some sediment capture structures above and below the road. Go ahead and go to the next slide and I'll show you where those are. So the pink ones here, you can see this is a big hole here. Pink ones are where we're going to use mechanization, big concrete trucks to make big structures, really hold a lot of sediment. And then all the orange ones will be one rock dams, small, mostly about absorbing water and slowing down the flow. The red ones will be a little bit larger. All the ones in red are hand built. So the reason there's so many is because this is a long channel. The more you can slow it down, and doing a lot of smaller structures is more durable and effective than doing a single or a couple very large structures. It can get overwhelmed really quick. The other positive thing, go ahead and go to the next slide. What's happened here is this is all bedrock. There's nothing that can grow here because it's just gravel on bedrock. So there's no moisture holding capacity. So once we do put in these rock structures, we'll be able to capture more sediment. We'll actually get some roughness that's going to continue to capture sediment in that channel. Okay.
Is that an illustration?
Yeah. John.
Look at that.
Yeah, in my past life, I was an artist. Take a long time. Okay. Yeah, so here's the proposed mechanized sediment points, which we're gonna have large cottonwoods. They should hold like up to 30 inches of sediment. And it's 20 feet across. A lot of these, on average, actually about 16 feet on average. So that's a pretty large, if we do 8 of those, that's a lot of sediment. Okay, and there's another illustration, just because I don't know. Yeah, let's actually stop it, because this project up until Friday, this was the totality of the ask. But on Friday, I think it was you.
Yep.
The devil over here gave me a call and
Devil.
yeah, was like, hey, you do more.
It wasn't me. I got the call.
I like doing more, so here we are. So we've expanded the ask. It's right. It's also, this is just on the west side of McCartney Mountain. So this is Eric Costa's ranch. In fact, he called Pedro. It was just timely. And Pedro called me and said, hey, got this idea. And I'm like, hey, it sounds great. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. And I ran out there Friday. We're putting together a plan. It's actually the same situation. It's very arid. You've got these dry canyons. You've got a lot of just sediment transportation during these high flow events. Yeah, that aren't very common, but hugely destructive. Okay.
It's separate from what we're talking about.
It's separate.
Other side of the deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
So on the first one, how much of that is public, how much of that is private?
Yeah, thanks for going back. This is all state.
It's all state.
Yeah.
All the road is,
Yeah, in fact, right at the Dillon border.
okay, so if you get clear down below, is there private there?
This goes to state until it starts to go into, we're not gonna get close enough to the where we have to deal with.
You can try to restore that.
Exactly, we'll be up here. Yes, it's all state. They don't know.
Are we trying to restore the side channel of the river or trying to?
That's a different.
Yeah.
bigger project.
No. Let it see what happens.
Yeah, I had Jim McGee out there and he was like, oh, I have a vision. I'm like, yeah, Jim, that's your vision, not mine, man. Yeah, so we're keeping it. And actually, the beauty about this is, it's not a lot of money. You're talking about a couple of heavy equipment for a few days and then hand crews for a week or two, a couple of weeks at each site.
Yeah.
It's just, they call it process-based restoration, or tech process-based restoration. It's a great way to start. And if the system overwhelms it, you need to go back, you go back. But it's a good question. Yeah. And I'm not, yeah.
This is a big part.
Yeah, it could be that. Next one and the last one, it's a sheet flow. You guys have all seen this when you get down the boards. It's roads, really roads, trails, and it's just, especially in that area, there's just not a lot of vegetation to stop that sediment from moving when you get a good thunderstorm. Any more questions?
Yeah, with Madison County and all the top lines, the sky, they're something to give you any money.
They're giving us actually heavy equipment and help. They've been very supportive. Yeah, they've been great. So, yeah, I talked to Ray today. But you talk to county road guys and they're always, they don't get it and they just get yelled at by wealthy people. So you gotta be, you just gotta be, I empathize with those guys quite a bit. Not that I get yelled at by people with money much, but Anyways, okay.
Not
Any
yet.
questions?
There's some restoration work. Oh, go ahead.
I'll just do that.
Restoration work going on in Saginaw. We doing any of that?
Yes.
How's the process?
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah,
We gave him that project.
yes. Patrick, do you want to answer that actually, or should I?
Yeah, I mean, we had the project teed up. And then with last year, with us being at a lower capacity and me being gone, handed it to MCC. MCC got the money from the same DEQ program that we're going out to. So they're working with the forest, but they need our,
We're gonna supervise.
yeah, so Nolan's gonna put some time into overseeing, coordinating and being there on site for
Yeah.
that work.
That's some work I've been trying to get done.
Really?
It's pretty simple.
Yeah, it's simple, but it's weird. I don't know. It's just harder than it should be. It's frustrating to me just because Kevin Miner says, "Hey, if we can't fix this, we can't fix anything." It's not like, really?
High stakes.
Like, I know. Yeah, so I'll be up there, I'll be with I just met with Steve in, NCC, I'll be up with their crews. See what it is, just to make sure that they have the support they need. Yeah. Cool. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, with all these reclamation projects, what kind of monitoring is done off the week?
Yeah, did you see that slide of all these, that was there?
I did.
Okay, the one with the car in the back.
That was slow, okay,
Yeah, that's all, that is all weeds.
that should, yeah.
And we do have a weed management plan, and we're gonna treat before we move. That, so that's, we have, part of the grant process, we did have a weed treatment. And that's-
When you get a contractor, hire a contractor,
Yeah.
do you make him come in with weight equipment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always specify that in the contracts. Power wash that thing before you load it up. So it shows up clean. But yeah, you can never get it all, but
Yeah.
it helps a lot.
And it says a weed base already there. It doesn't mean they can't breathe. But yeah, we're gonna be building on this.
How long do you monitor it after the reclamation is done?
That, we haven't gotten to that stage yet on this project. Once we get it awarded the grant, that's when we go. But I think on project level, it would be probably 3+ years. If we're in that particular.
Yeah, the DEQ, for them to sign off and give you the money, they say that they need to have access to the site for up to 10 years to keep monitoring. Some landowners have an issue with signing off on something that's, at any point in the next 10 years, a DEQ person can come over on my property and look at this. However, they don't bite. They just literally come and take pictures if they even ever have time to do that. We've been hired by agencies to go back and do their monitoring for them on projects because they really realistically don't have the staff for it. But no, we're setting up photo points, setting up locations before, afters, and places we can always go back to and take follow-up pictures. We could ask the landowners nearby to do that as well, keep an eye on stuff. We've got some good cooperative neighbors in that country. Keep an eye on the weeds there, for sure.
Whatever county these projects are in, you try to cooperate with the county weed district.
We haven't talked to the weed district specifically about this one, but we're talking to Madison, their road crews about that, because they use that little pull-in for when they're blading the road and cleaning it off and stuff like that. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we could ask them to just target this area.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's folks with chemicals driving on this road at some point. Wouldn't cost much to find.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we'll make sure they get on that and just hit that spot. Thanks, Mark.
So when a utility files its cable, internet or that, they use it 5 years to have.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's usually on us. We're the project owners, so we sign off on taking that stuff on.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Any additional business, something that's not on the agenda? All right, let's take a quick break and then we'll come back with Jesse, grab some coffee, grab some cookies, and Jesse will talk to us about mountain lions.
So I think over the recent years, we've given just a general wildlife update focused on big game in general. And I thought I'd change it up and just dive into specific topics, specific species, and try that out. So Antenna called me about doing a presentation last spring or so. I was wrapping up this mountain lion stuff, so I was like, I'll just talk about that. So I'm going to talk about our mountain lion monitoring and management stuff. Just bookkeeping things. Feel free to interrupt me. I don't mind that at all. If you have a question, just shoot. And also about this talk, there's going to be some math. And we will not be doing any math here, but I will have to explain what the math is doing a little bit. I thought that's a big ask for people. So I thought we'll ease into stuff with some more just kind of general fun fact ecology kind of things. So I thought I'd share some stuff to give you a picture of some of the social life of mountain lions. So picture yourself as a young female mountain lion, let's say 12, 14 months old, get kicked off from your mom. Typically what happens is those females often will just carve out a home range nestled in with their moms or adjacent to it. So we call that being phyllopatric. They kind of love where they came from, but it's really flexible. So you'll always get some females dispersing out to find a new place. And especially if you get up to high densities, then those females will really start leaving that area. Males, it's a little different. Males are almost obligatory dispersers. So they almost inevitably will take off and head out to find their own territory. They'll be heading 30, 60, 100 miles from where they started. So this means one key thing about this is it means that these populations are operating on real large spatial scales, right? So what's happening in an LMU or in a lion management unit might depend just as much on what's going on around it as what's going on in that unit. And then when they do carve out their home range, if they're successful in doing that, females, their home range size really varies. It's hard to put a number on it, but let's say you just go through all the studies, roughly about 100 square miles of what they need to basically support themselves and their kittens. Males have larger territories. And the reason is because they're not so concerned about supporting themselves and kittens, they're getting access to females. So they're overlapping multiple females for breeding. And they defend those territories very aggressively. This is what happens if you end up in some other male's territory. This cat actually died from its wounds shortly after that. And in fact, in places where you don't have hunting, the number one cause of death for males is other males. They really police these areas. One of the reasons they do that is if you get a new male coming in, it's really common for them to kill the kittens that they find. That'll bring the female into estrus quicker. And so there's a lot of incentive to protect that place because you'll lose your kittens and your breeding opportunities. So it's taken pretty seriously. So this is making them sound really antisocial, but they actually have more of a social life than a lot of us used to appreciate. You knew there was more going on because you'd sometimes find two females together, sometimes them and their kittens. I've multiple times found a female with her kittens with the resident male right there, all together in this little nuclear family. So you knew this was going on. But what really blew this open was when we started putting cameras out. And then you saw, oh, actually, these guys are coming into contact with each other on a fairly regular basis. And I think how this kind of works is that they know their neighbors. They know they've sorted things out. They know their neighbors. This also can cause some issues if you get a lot of high turnover, especially in the males. Those new males coming in, nobody knows each other, and it comes, they start killing kittens, each other, sometimes females. This is part of the incentive for creating a male subquota. So now in Region 3, we have both a female and male subquota, is to keep some of those big resident toms out there so they can do the killing of those younger toms and create a little more social stability. So those are some kind of background stuff on our social life. Some of this will be applicable to what I am going to talk about today. Yes. Yes, sir.
A female, instead of 100 square miles.
Yeah.
Now, is that 10 by 10?
It-
100, it would be 100 by.
No, yeah, it'd be like 10 by 10. But of course, it's never circular. Yeah, it depends on the trim and everything. And it's really good. I mean, I know of a female that had like a 25 square mile, maybe it was more 45. And I know one that was like 375. Just depends on what they're accessing, how prey is migrating.
So do the females, do their territories overlap at all, or just
They
kind of walk?
do overlap
Okay.
to some extent, yeah. Though interestingly, the pioneers were not seeing as much of that, which is kind of weird. And a lot of times they'll be related too, right? Because they're philopatric a lot of times, so those females might be mom and daughter,
And so they don't
granddaughter, whatever.
get aggressive toward each other, is that?
Yeah, and there, even if it's a strange female, they kind of seem to sort it out. The males are much more intolerant. So actually, the main focus of this is going to be the mountain lion management. Sorry, I got a little distracted by that thing. So I'm going to talk about our monitoring strategy, which basically was this idea of we needed to come up with a system to try to get some information on what we actually had for mountain lions, so we could meet these kind of competing interests of like where people want to see those mountain lion populations. And a gentleman named Jay Colby, who's now a biologist out of White Sulphur, was tasked with coming up with this mountain lion management strategy. And at this point, the person that's really making this go and is kind of tasked with figuring it out is Ashley Hodge here. And so what I'm presenting her here is really her stuff. I'm just helping out a bit, but this is really her deal. So the first kind of step in this direction was taken back in 2015. A gentleman named Hugh Robinson developed a habitat model for the state of Montana based on a bunch of color data. The idea here was to know what we actually have for habitat. And this model is really key to how we're getting some of those population estimates. It's going to come in at multiple stages of how we figure out how many mountain lions there are. So this was a big step. And this is just a covariates that are in the model and what he used to build it. And I should specify, this is for winter only. This is all winter habitat. And one of the things we could do with that is we could divide up the state based on the similarity of habitat in different areas. So up here in region 1, well, ecoregion 1, we have almost uniformly high quality habitat. These are the different habitat values of the different ecoregions. It has the highest score, and it's all similarly nice habitat. Then you have West Central area, which is pretty good habitat as well. And then you get down to the Southwest, it's more marginal. And then poorer habitat out east. I should note, there's spots out east that are great habitat, but by and large, it's poor line habitat. And the other thing about having these areas of similarity, you notice that they're really big. And that was to deal with that issue of if your population is being driven by all these dispersers, you have to get pretty big before you can really call it a population. So you got to get out to about 35,000 square kilometers or so And then those effects of all those cats moving around wash out.
What makes the Northwest better?
A lot of it has to do with just the forest cover. It's a lot of elevation or a lot of deeper terrain, a lot of forest cover. And a big thing for mountain lions is they have to get close to stuff. And so it's all about cover. And how we get those estimates is we use what's called marker capture. So we go out and mark animals and then recapture them again to get that estimate. And I'll explain a little about that later. In this case, we're not really putting like tags on them or anything. We're essentially giving them a genetic tag. So we contract out these houndsmen. They'll go out and they'll treat cats and they'll hit them with this dart gun here, and that gets a little biopsy sample. And that tissue sample, we get genetics from it. And so essentially that animal's marked. And then all that goes into what we call a spatially explicit marker capture model. And I'll explain what that means here shortly.
Retrieve that,
It just falls out.
it just falls, so it goes in, it gets a sample and it
Yeah.
just falls out, and then you just gotta find the,
And then we gotta find.
then you gotta find
Yeah,
the little
that's-
orange thing in the
Doesn't
snow.
always work
That just
great.
fell out of a
but
tree.
yeah.
Okay.
The thing falls out or the lion falls out?
No,
So
the
the little thing falls out.
I
mean,
can
it-
just imagine, yeah, in deep snow, one of those things.
Yeah,
just-
or it gets stuck up in the tree.
Or, yeah, yeah.
There's, yeah. But it works remarkably well most of the time. Of course, one of the things about this is you can't just turn these houndsmen out and say, go catch cats, because they'll just hydrate the landscape. And what we want to know is, we want something representative of the landscape. So how you get around that problem is you randomly assign them a cell every day, and they have to go search that cell. And so they'll tool around, and have to get into the cell, but if they do pick up a cat, kind of on the way or on the way out, they can run it. But that keeps them sampling the landscape instead of just hydrating it. And here's the math. So we want to know how many mountain lions are out there. Of course, we can mark a bunch of mountain lions, but what about all the mountain lions we don't encounter? And how to figure out what we have for those unencountered ones. So how this works at the basic level is you go out, let's say you have 2 capture sessions. So you go out, let's say you catch 25 mountain lions. And then you go out the next month or whatever, in your next capture session, and let's say you catch 20 mountain lions. What's really important about this is these mountain lions that are recaught, right? So when you recapture those individuals, you know how many lions you had caught originally, you know how many you recaught, so you can figure out the probability of catching a mountain lion. Does that make sense? And so then you know that number, and then you can extrapolate that out. This is what the simplified formula looks like. The key idea is we figure out an estimate for that population based on these recaptures of marked individuals. Of course, it's more complicated than this. This has a lot of assumptions, right? For one, you need population closure, as we call it. It means we don't want animals leaving the area or coming into the area between those 2 capture sessions, because that's going to screw up that probability. Other issues at a basic level, it assumes that all those captures are independent of each other. It also assumes each cat's equally catchable. That's obviously not true, right? They have different home ranges. Some of them might only occasionally come into your study area. Some might be running right up and down the middle of it. That's going to change how the probability of capture. So that's where the spatially explicit part comes in. So this is all the gears that give us the population estimate. So you have the encounter history, that's just those captures. Is it captured then? Is it captured again? And then we incorporate, based on those captures, estimates of the activity centers. So where we think that cat hangs out. And also that habitat model. Here's where the habitat model comes in. We figured that, well, that's going to shape the area the cats are using. That habitat, there's some search effort and things like that, and that's what spits out this population estimate in the end. So that's, yeah, I'll talk about how this has gone so far. So the big plan that Jay came up with was we would have these study areas that were hopefully representative of these different regions. We'd go in there, get an estimate and extrapolate it out. So this was done up in the Northwest here and came up with densities of 4.9 and 3.6 in the two different study areas. That's 4.9 per 100 square kilometers, 3.6 per 100 square kilometers. Then it went into the West Central area and got their estimates there, 2 to 2.8 lions per 100 square kilometers within the study area. And then it came down to Southwest Montana. And we'll get into how that went in a little bit. So if we go back here, part of what we're doing is saying, here, have this density here, based on this habitat, how many lions do we think we have? But that's not all of it. We also have what's called an integrated population model, which I won't even attempt to explain. But basically just think the idea is to take all these disparate sources of information, we put them all together with some measure of their error and say, okay, if you put them all together, what's the most likely population size? And some of the information just comes out of the literature, things about survival, fecundity. The actual data that we put into it are those estimates from those study areas, those densities, harvest, and then the age of harvested animals. And so that's what ends up spitting out a population estimate. And you can also play with it. You could say, what would it take to increase harvest to get a 15% decrease in the population, and 10% increase and things like that. And so this helps think through management scenarios. So they did this up in Northwest Montana. They came up with, you can see that number, an estimate of about 1,400 mountain lions in this area. But of course, you could see that kind of 90% credible in intervals going from 650 to about 2,500. Then it went to West Central Montana, came up with about 1,400 lions. But look at this variance in here. That estimate ranged from 540 to 7,500. So I'm guessing that if I just asked you people cold, how many mountain lions are in this area, I mean, you could probably just come up with a range that could. I could do that. This gives a person some misgivings, and then to make it worse, this number right here, the plain estimate, we were looking at it in the science community or committee that was overseeing this. There was just a lot of stuff that just didn't feel right. It seemed like there was a lot of room for error there. So we kind of had these misgivings about this. And then we came down to this part of the world over in Gallatin and tried to get this market capture estimate. And it just totally blew up. We just weren't getting the recaptures. And we got no usable estimate. So we're building up this is not looking good. And then we came over to this part of the world to get our estimate. So I'll dive into how that went last year. Yeah, down here. So this was our study area grid, which we're sitting right up here right now, and in the middle of the grid. All these squiggly lines, that just represents different townsmen that sort of tap. The little dots are places where they actually got samples from. And we did pretty good. We got 50 biopsy dart samples. Sometimes, you try to run these cats, they're not always successful, but sometimes you can pick up a scat or hair or something that gives you some more IDs. And then we also take tissue samples from all the harvested animals, both within the study area and then in the surrounding lion management units. And that can pick us up some new individuals, both in the study area, but it also could detect animals that potentially dispersed from your study area. So you can think, oh, okay, well, that thing wasn't there to be recaught. again, that's that closure issue. And what they came up with was we had samples from 27 different individuals, 15 males, 13 females. And 11 of those individuals were caught more than once. And it's actually better than that because some of these individuals were actually caught in multiple sessions, like up to 5 times. So our recapture rate last year was the best I think they've ever gotten. So that's really going to make it more effective to get actually a precise estimate. So that was good news. The other thing we started to do last year was to actually call our lines to get a better sense of how these models were working or not working. And so last year we collared 6 females, 5 of those are still on air, and then 7 males, and 2 of those are on air still. And the idea here, where this really comes in with this thing here, with those activity centers and habitat use stuff. And so the big issue that, like what blew up the Gallatin here was, if you're just going off those biopsy samples, let's say you catch a cat once right here at the north end of the grid, right? And you never see that cat again. Well, it's hard to say what its activity center is. You don't know. Is it only once in a blue moon coming to the grid? You don't know. Or let's say you catch some male down here and you're lucky enough to catch him again, but it just so happens it's in the same cell. Essentially, that's no information. So the difference is with the callers, we actually know what area they're using. We know how big, where those activity centers are, how big it is. For that matter, a lot of times we could say, was that cat in that cell when we went to sample it? So this will give us hopefully a lot better handle on that space use. The other thing that this could prove useful for is updating that habitat model or validating at least. Like how well is that actually fitting down here in region 3 in terms of what cats are actually using. And we weren't really counting on this so much, but it proved very interesting. It also gave us information on cats' fates. So this female here, she was caught pretty early last year in December. About a month later, all of a sudden she started making these weird linear movements and then ended up laying down at the base of this cliff and dying. You could see she was severely emaciated. Took her to the lab. We don't know what happened to her, but what we do know is she wasn't available for recapture anymore. So we know we could have to censor her out of those estimates. Similarly, this was actually the first cat we caught last year. And a couple months later, he died of some unknown cause. Again, okay, this population is clearly not closed. A related issue, this baby-faced Tom here, he probably had just got kicked off from his mom. We caught him in the southwest corner of the grid. In about 2 weeks, he ended up dispersing and just totally leaving the area. He lives now down around Maiden Peak. So again, what this tells us is we have a fundamental closure issue, right? We have cats leaving, probably cats coming in. So we're going to have to really think about that when we're making these estimates. And this is just to illustrate this point, like, we need all those cats to be there when we get this next sample, so we know that capture probability. There is also some nice stuff as an area biologist to having those callers out there. It gives us a better handle on how they're used in the landscape. Instead of, I saw some cat tracks over here and some others over here, you can actually start to get a picture, okay, how are they actually using this landscape? And you talked about the home range overlap with the females. Oddly enough, our females don't overlap at all, which is kind of weird. Of course, we didn't catch every cat in the entire mountain range, but it still was interesting how little overlap there was. Another thing we can do is when we see those GPS points clustering somewhere, you can think, oh, there's probably something dead there. And you can go check it out. And this isn't like any formal part of this project, but mostly it's just a good excuse for me to go take a hike on the weekend and see what they're bringing down. And we've only done so many of these. We have about 16 that we've looked at and just thought people might be interested in what we found. The majority of the kills have been elk so far, particularly the juvenile elk calves, and that's followed by mule deer fawns, and then that's closely followed by adult mule deer. So one of these mule deer, I don't know if that was other than that, and then classified. And so this is more just probably no surprise that cats eat elk and deer, but still fun to see.
How much do you think? Cats could additional.
I don't know.
That's
Honestly,
something you hear.
you do. Yeah. So this is a little bit of digression, but so in the East Pioneers, we have a mule deer trend area. So we have pretty good data on mule deer trends and recruitment. And that area is varied in the terms of harvest by quite a bit over the years, from 2 or 3 cats to 7 cats a year. And so I did a back of the envelope thing, looking at, okay, if you have sustained high cat harvest over a period of time, I used a 3-year moving window, is that followed by a bump in recruitment or the counts? And basically I found no relationship. In fact, it was almost the exact opposite. If you killed less cats, then it was followed by more mule deer, which I think was just totally spurious. But I think what that tells you is there's certainly no guarantee that if you kill more cats, you're going to get more mule deer. Based on what we were seeing so far, there's not nearly as many cats as people think there are. They're not. It looks like there's a lot fewer than we thought.
Can houndsmen, if they treat one of these calling cats, it's a male harvest.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll get to that right here, actually. So the other thing is this can tell us about what's going on with those cats survival wise. So over this year of having collars out, you had 6 females collared. You had one of those die. That was the one I showed you. The males, we had 7 collars out. 2 of them are still alive. One's down in maybe the 3 harvests. That one that I showed you was health-related, and then this guy who was killed by another mountain. One of our collared toms actually killed him.
And you were able to get on those fast enough because you had the collar, they stopped
Yeah.
moving until you were there.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's not a normal scene. Usually the bones first.
Yeah, exactly. We could get, it took us, I think, 2 days to get to this one, but yeah, pretty recent. Yeah, this was maybe if I have time later, I'll explain this a weird looking deal.
When you find them dead like that.
Take the collar off.
Oh,
Not necessarily. Like those health related ones, we actually pulled those out because we wanted to know. The first thing we were thinking was avian influenza. Here, we had a pretty good idea what happened then, but it didn't, or plague, that was another issue. We've had plague positive cats. Yes. Yeah. In fact, that male was plague positive. But the problem is sometimes they can carry plague and it just doesn't seem to affect them. And then other times it clearly does. I found a female once, her lymph nodes were so swelled up that it was cutting into the collar. It was really gruesome. And that also, it can give us information on reproduction. And this is fun to see. So we went and like I said, we collared 7 females over the past year. 3 of those attempted dens, 2 of them failed. There was predation on the kittens in the den. One of them successfully got those kittens off. These are the two twins here. And as far as I know, they're still out there. This was back in July when we caught them. And I haven't seen indications of them for a while, but last I know they're still out there. And then, but actually the main reason we went to catch these kittens was marking with ear tags. We don't put colors on them. And the reason for that was to get better age data. So area bios, one of the metrics that they commonly look at is the age of harvested cats. So personally, I like to use this one of looking at the proportion of cats that are 6 years old or better. That seems to be some indication of how they're surviving. The problem with this is cats, unlike a bear or deer or elk, they don't go through a regular period of starvation, which basically ungulates and stuff do. So counting those rings is a lot tougher to figure out exactly what it's telling us. But according to the lab, if they had some known age individuals, they might be able to get a better idea of how old those cats are and refine their estimates. So we mark those kittens. In case one day they get harvested, we'll have a known age on them. But I think the biggest initial benefit of this will be that habitat model, because that's really important to what we're doing here. It's giving us what we have for within the study area estimates, and it's also being used to extrapolate out to that whole region. So we need this habitat model to work well. And we had some misgivings about it. The original model was, all due respect to Hugh, who was a lot smarter than me, but there were some things that just didn't make sense for winter habitat use for cats. One of them that seems pretty odd is you have the west side of the big hole there and the beaver heads. Might be some cat use in there in the winter, but it's not going to support much. Yeah, nothing for them. Yeah, nothing for them to eat. And there was a lot of these kind of things. It was, I don't know, that just doesn't feel right. So we took Nick DeCesar, he took Hugh's old data plus this additional collar data we've got since then from a couple different places. And he redid this habitat model. And this is early stages here, but it feels better. The color scale is not exactly the same, so don't overinterpret it, but you can see obviously the West Staples isn't looking quite as good as it did. And so this one, it seems better. One of the big changes he made is this model used elevation. The problem is elevation means a really different thing depending on where you're at, right? If you're in the Breaks or here or Northwest Montana. And instead what Nick used was estimates of snow depth, which seems intuitively to make a lot more sense as far as what's going to influence the cats and their prey. So this seems really promising. So our next steps is to start incorporating that telemetry data to get better estimates of those study areas, improve that habitat model so we can get better estimates in the study area and for the ecoregion. And then that integrated population model that I didn't talk about much, if it needs some serious work, hopefully that'll eventually give us more accurate, precise estimates of the population and translate to management. That's all I got. Thank you for your patience, folks.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Getting back to the kittens, what's the biggest degradation of those kittens?
Yeah, so the number one, so what happened in those two cases where we went in, one of them, I don't know, we just found some kitten parts. The second one, a male came along, it was actually a collared male, and it was at the site. So that doesn't look good. But also when we got there, there was a bunch of bear hair all through the kitten or through the den. So we don't know which of those was a big deal or not. Yeah. But the biggest predictor of kitten survival, so like in Yellowstone, when that population was just growing and it was really unstable, you were getting new males coming in all the time. Kitten survival really suffered after that, because you're always getting these new males coming in, killing kittens. When that population became more stable, then, and maybe counterintuitively, had a really high density of males, which seems like it might be bad for kittens. What that meant is you had all these resident males that were just locked into their place, and they're not going to kill the kittens. And so that really jumped up the kitten survival. That was the main factor that influenced kitten survival. That and prey. That's the other bit.
So when they introduced the wolves into the spoon, or late night, how did that affect the cat population?
Yeah, so that was a big part of that Yellowstone research. That was the main focus of it, was to see what happens. So they've done a cat study there, multi-year cat study. So they had good information on the cats, and then they brought the wolves in. So it was like, this is the perfect opportunity to see what happens. And yeah, so there's a few things going on. Wolves kill cats for sure.
They're also more afraid of.
Yeah, so there was some direct killing. That probably didn't have a huge effect. And then also prey-based, the elk population, which was partially a wolf issue. So that changed. But actually the biggest change, the most like obvious change that was seen was the cats shrunk down areas that were used. So they were being a lot more particular about where they were at and using more areas with cover and escape cover and stuff. Apply these habitat models clear across the state. Habitat model with wolves and without wolves are different. That was the biggest. Yep.
Does your habitat model take into account what's going on across state and Canadian borders? It also looked like you had the reservation carved out there in some places.
Yeah, it does. So the original model, that's a really good question. It's a really good question for a place like here where we have this huge border with Idaho, right? And we know that these populations are operating over big scales. So obviously what's going on in Idaho is never changed. Here's original work, it just stopped at the border. And that obviously causes some issues. Next one actually goes past the border. How we're going to make use of that, I don't exactly know, but that's a big question. Is it certainly important?
I know you only did the curious if there's any seasonality to lines that you can see from health, or then more during the summer, and then less so is bigger, take down the bigger.
Yeah.
Notice that, is it mostly calves on the ground?
This, I mean,
It's
can't
small.
really say anything from that, but just past experience.
Yeah, that's.
It, yeah, I mean, elk calf all year round. They're like the perfect, an elk calf, I think, in winter, that whole first year of life is like perfect mountain lion size. This is, and they're still dumb. That's like, back when a guy named Terry Murphy did that original Yellowstone work. Basically, if you went to a kill site, you just saw that. You figured that's what's gonna happen because there were so many elk calves out there. When the population changed and all of a sudden, you got grizzly bears that really shifted to elk calves with the collapse of the fishery. And then that really tanked those calves. And so now there's not as many calves around. And so then they started to get more adults. Oh,
It's good for the percentage.
exactly. I mean, yeah,
You're done.
yeah, thanks. I think wolves, they're running things, they're testing them out. Cats, their mentality is like, just keep your head down and I'm gonna eat you. I think up to a certain point, cow moves is pretty hard to play down. Yep,
We go on the country day, like, 1 great hour. migration.
Oh, I see how they see. Wait, elk migration,
Out migration.
out migration. You've definitely seen it. Let me see if I can go back real quick. Just to where the grid is. So we actually saw quite a bit of it. I pointed out that one we got down here. There's a maiden peak now. That dead one was killed over here up Steel Creek. But he was captured over here. He migrated. The one that killed him, we caught up here, and he ended up, I think, establishing a home range that basically ran all the rest of it. He's dead now, but then. So. Yeah, I mean, we're definitely seeing some of it. But then, I mean, it's only for a limited period of time, so they're really dispersing only for a year or two. So it's hard to catch unless you're always throwing collars in. Got it? All right, thank you. Sorry for keeping you so late, folks.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Thank you very much for coming. Everybody, please drive safe. Next month, we've got a CCAA update. Find out about our fishies. And that,
At 7 next month.
that's right, daylight savings, 7 o'clock. Meeting started. Thanks, everybody.